Hello, everybody. Welcome to our NCO webinar. It's fantastic to know that you're all out there and listening to us. I'm Kath Arledge. I'm the Artistic and Educational Director of NCO. And today I'm being joined by two legends from the London Symphony Orchestra, and they're going to be introducing themselves in just a minute. But before they do that, in order for you to join in the webinar, I'm sure many of you have know already because you've been in them before. But to ask the questions, you just go down to the bottom of the screen and there's a Q&A button and you can press on that and then type in your questions, and we'll do our very best to answer as many of those as possible. And then there'll also be some polling. So you can vote on various things as we're going through. So can I hand over straight away to Maxine? Could you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Maxine Kwok. I'm a first violinist in the London Symphony Orchestra. I'm originally from Bromley, where my parents still live, and I have very close connections to Bromley. I grew up through their music system, the Bromley Youth Music Trust, and I joined NCO, gosh, I'm not going to say the year, but I was, I think, 10 or 11 years old, and I spent 3 or 4 very happy years there. I moved on to the National Youth Orchestra when I was a bit older. And then I moved from Bromley into central London when I went to study at the Royal Academy of Music, which I really, really enjoyed. And from there, I became a student of the LSO's String Experience Scheme. And I've been a member of the orchestra now for almost 20 years. So that was kind of the journey I made from a youngster starting at 6.
Well, welcome, Maxine. It's brilliant. Thank you so much for spending the time with us this afternoon. And Jo, tell us about you.
Hello. So I'm Jo Johnson, and I also was born in Kent, but a bit further down towards the coast than Maxine. I was born in Maidstone, which is right in the middle, and I am also a violinist. But at the moment, my job is not playing the violin, and I work for the London Symphony Orchestra, as Kath said. So my early years were spent playing in the Kent music system, Maidstone Youth Music Society and the Kent County Youth Orchestra. And I went on to study music at university rather than music college. I went to the University of Hull and got a degree in music. And from there, I went immediately to work for an orchestra called the Orchestra of St John's, which is a small chamber orchestra based in London. And I've done various things ever since. And now 15 years ago, not nearly as long as Maxine, I joined the LSO and I am their digital marketing manager. Well, that's a short form. So my long title is Senior Marketing Manager, Digital Communications. And that basically involves looking after the orchestra's website, looking after the social media. I've done things like produce videos. I'm involved in producing the live streamed concerts that are available to watch at the moment while the orchestra's not performing. I've done various things, but it's all to do with communicating with the audience out there and getting people to come listen to the orchestra online, listen to the orchestra on CD, and listen to the orchestra in the hall.
Fantastic, thank you, Jo. So I've got a little screen share ready for you now because we've got some lovely pictures of these guys when they were little. So here we are. Can you see this one? This is little Maxine. How cute is that? When was that, Maxine?
I think I was about 7 years old. I started at 6, and the following year I was enrolled in the Bromley sort of music trust there. So this would have been Saturday Strings, a little Saturday morning group there. So I looked quite concentrated. I think I enjoyed it. I probably enjoyed the whole dressing up bit, you know, hairband and bow and stuff.
I like your glasses. I think I remember those glasses.
Yeah, they were the glasses to have. So yeah, I had glasses from a very early age. So it hasn't helped by reading all the music.
And tell us about this picture.
Here I am, I think, going off to my very first NCO course. In those days, you would have met at a central point and taken a coach. And I'm waving to my parents. This would have been King's Cross Station, actually. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that is someone who became one of my absolute best friends sitting behind me, Miho. We didn't know each other when this picture was taken, and that's us together in our LSO trip to Japan in 2018. So she still remains one of my closest friends to this day, and I see her when she's here in London and when the orchestra visit Tokyo. So
Amazing.
Quite amazing, and friendship lasting from, let's say, the late 80s until now.
Incredible. Great. And this is Joe. Oh, look, there's a poll here. The first poll has popped up before we talk about Joe. It says, Maxine is known as the rainbow-haired violinist. How many colours does she have in her hair today? 2, 3, or 4? Okay, so we're going to have a little look at that in a minute. Now, let's have a look at Joe. Joe, can you see Joe there? Tell us where this was, Joe.
So that was in Hungary, in a place that I probably can't pronounce. But I think it was Zombati, something like that. Anyway, forgive me, Hungarians. This is the Maidstone Youth Music Society. I think it was about 90, I can't remember what I said, 2, 3, 4, something like that. And I am the one with the arrow pointing at me. So I was leading the orchestra, which is nice. We were wearing very attractive blue skirts, you can see there. And they were a really lovely shade of royal blue, and they were wraparound. So they're just a long piece of material that you wrapped around you. But they belonged to the society. So when you grew up and left, you handed your skirt back, and it was given to someone else. And because I was quite small, I was given someone who was very tall, and it basically was probably about that much too long for me. So my mum had to turn it up and make a hem, a really thick hem, so it sort of stuck out A-line, very lovely. Yeah, and as you can see, we all had to wear those, regulation. But we had a fantastic time, and for some reason, our conductor liked to go to Eastern Europe on tours, maybe because it was cheap, perhaps, I'm just saying, and he would go every other year, and he would bring everyone out there, which was an amazing experience for a 13, 14, 15-year-old. I was probably maybe 16 then, I think, but it was a fantastic experience.
Can you see the next picture?
Yeah. Yes.
So this is university, is that right?
This is university. So this is the University of Hull. I think it was my final year. And we were involved in a production of Cabaret. So the drama department put on a musical every year and got the music department to provide the band. And Cabaret was the musical for that year. And me and my colleagues, unfortunately, the theatre at the university didn't have space for a pit. So we had to go in a side room, a studio, which they had a radio studio there. We had to go in this side room and play. We were playing live for the musical, and we were piped through to the theatre, so no one could see us, which was slightly disappointing to us, because we thought, everyone ought to be able to see us. We're the most important people in this. So we entertained ourselves every night by having a fancy dress night, and this was pyjama night. So that's me wearing my...
Talking of fancy dress, there's another rather odd picture of you there that we might gloss over now, and just say that actually Jo has been very busy in the last, is it 8 months now? Because
it's 8 months, yeah.
She has these 2 little amazing little boys in her life who we might even pop in a little bit later. So I'm going to end the screen sharing there, and we're going to tell you the results of the poll, because the poll has come in, Maxine, to say 13% think you've got 4 colours, 60% think 3, and 27% think 2. So what is the answer?
The correct answer is actually 4. It's quite hard to tell probably on screen at the moment, but there is something called, did I say sludge green, which goes into electric green, neon pink, and then the darker parts are purple rage. So it can really vary between 3 and 5 depending on my mood.
Amazing. Well, thank you for that. Now, you've coached on NCO as well, Maxine. Tell us a little about your experience of coaching.
It was amazing to be a coach. I think to come full circle with something like that, having actually been in the orchestra, and for it to have shaped my musical life so much. I was actually quite nervous. I remember going on the train with my suitcase, my violin, and thinking, that I would have influence over young minds and shaping their musical journeys, because I remember so vividly just learning so much on these courses. So it was great. I had a great time. Both times I coached, I had a really lovely section. It was fun. We had lots of interaction, and just the amazing from the first day of really not knowing very much about music to the concert. It was just like the most incredible feeling to see the progression and the way that everybody absorbed stuff. It was a great fun time.
Brilliant. So we've had lots of questions actually already. So the first one, which several people have asked, is what's the violin in the background, Maxine?
Oh, this this violin it's really a prop. I did actually use it, although there's almost no sound. I don't know if you can see it, but it says London 2012 and the Olympic rings. The LSO played at the opening and closing ceremonies in 2012. We were told that we would be on a big stage in the stadium, but we wouldn't be covered. And if it rained, we were not to leave the stage. So it was decided that we would record the music ahead of the time and mime. And in which case we had some very, very, very cheap instruments that are basically very flimsy, and we used those. And I decided to keep mine and have it made into a memento, so that, you know, it would be a lovely thing for me to keep and remember such a historic occasion for the orchestra and for me.
Yeah, amazing, brilliant. Now, Joe, we're going to just going to share one more thing now, a screen share of what goes on behind an orchestra in terms of professional orchestra. So this is the LSO's website, and these are all the people that work behind the scenes at the LSO. So you have a managing sort of an executive team, then you have, look, all these people working backstage and planning concerts and tours, then all these people working in fundraising, all these people working in discovery, then lots of people in finance, in LSO Live, which is the recording, in marketing, which is where Jo would be if she didn't have two little people in her life right now, and LSO St. Luke's, which is their venue, public relations, technology, and archives. So I counted them up, and there are 89 people that work behind the scenes at LSO. And that must be about the same as the number of musicians here. And look, there's Maxine right in the middle, center stage. So there are so many more jobs in music and in orchestras than just simply playing your instrument. So I'm going to share now the LSO play. Could you talk to us about this, Jo?
Yeah, so we came up with this. It was quite a few years ago now. It sort of had a bit of a slow start. We'd done some recording. The first time we recorded, videoed with video cameras, the LSO. And this one, in fact, was the very first one. The first time we did it ourselves instead of having the BBC come in and do it. And we had this footage and we thought, oh, what should we do with it? We realised that once we'd edited it together and made it look beautiful, and it was fantastic, we realised that what we had was lots of different camera shots, and you can see 4 of them here. I think we had 6 in total, that all are simultaneously recording, and then it's edited together afterwards. We realised what we had was a completely different view of an orchestra playing than what you normally see, a director's view, one person's view of what they want you to see. So we decided to put it together into this site called play.lso.co.uk, and I think there's now, I can't remember how many there are now. There might have been a couple more since I went on maternity leave, but I think there was 6 or 7 recordings in there now, and we're gradually building it up.
Great, and you can change the view. So if you click on here and you wanted to see the conductor, for example, then up he comes and you can see what he's doing. So it's quite interactive. And then if you click on this button over here on the side, up pop various options. So you can explore the orchestra and see where the instruments are, what they are. You can actually look at the biographies of the different musicians, which is brilliant. And probably the best thing of all are these masterclasses that you have that you can click on. So any of these instruments, you can have a masterclass on bolero from the clarinets, from the trombones, from the snare drum, from any of those guys. So it's an incredible resource. I think there are 6 pieces in it. And so I think that's a great thing to explore for all of you guys. So we'll move on to another one, another thing that I thought I might share quickly in terms of digital things that are quite exciting. Obviously, BBC 10 Pieces, you probably know, they're doing a lot of fun stuff that you can use at the moment. There's also a really lovely thing that I discovered on the EUYO website called the Listening Project, which is all about how you listen within orchestras. Then there's lovely stuff from ABRSM, perhaps for the younger members of NCO, and also some great stuff from BBC Bite Size, composing skills, music technology, all that kind of stuff. So lots of incredible digital resources out there that Joe's been involved in some of, but also a really great opportunity for you to get involved in other digital things. And we'd also, oh look, here we go. We've got another poll. It says, Joe's twin boys love music, especially Wham, Shostakovich, ABBA, Dua Lipa, Mozart, or Billie Eilish. Okay, so let's see what people think. What do your twins like? And we'll see how we go. Brilliant. So if there's any other digital things that you're using, please do put it on the chat, and we will have a look at them, and hopefully we'll be able to share them maybe next week. Okay, so another question for Maxine. Why did you choose, what inspired you to start your instrument?
I didn't really have much of a choice, to be honest. I wanted to be a tap dancer. I kept badgering my parents for tap shoes. We went to watch a tap class. I was obsessed with films, the old films, black and white films of Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, and I was like, right, I'm going to be a tap star, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing I know, I'm in violin lessons. So it wasn't really my choice, but my parents love music. My mum teaches the piano, and I took to it very quickly. Obviously, I did really enjoy it once I got going. And that's basically why I started. But to be honest, it was more about when I started playing in an orchestra, that's when my real love for the violin came about, to be honest.
Yeah, so it's sort of about playing with people, isn't it? There's something really magical about being in an ensemble together. Great. So Joe, the poll has come in. Let me see. 8% think Dua Lipa, 10% think Wham, 12 Shostakovich, 14 Mozart, 23 Billie Eilish, and the highest score is ABBA, 34%.
Yeah. Well, actually, out of those ones there, I'd say it was either ABBA or Shostakovich. Because I think it's all about babies respond to what you love, and if we're responding to the music, they respond to it. So the Shostakovich was the LSO recording, of course, and we were shaking their rattles in time with the timpani, so they loved that. And the ABBA, we were just dancing around the room having a great time.
Brilliant, great, that's excellent. So we've got some more questions coming in. For you, Maxine, what's the favourite piece you've ever played with the LSO?
Oh, that's a tricky one. That's like trying to name your favorite children or something. I love playing, I suppose Mahler is my favorite composer, but I particularly remember, I do love Romeo and Juliet, the ballet, and particularly something I did in the very early days in my orchestra, which was a staged performance in the Barbican of Romeo and Juliet. So we had the ballet going on around the orchestra, which was an incredible thing with Rostropovich conducting, and I'll never forget that. So that is kind of a highlight, if you like. But to be honest, I could play Mahler every week and I'd be pretty happy.
Great. Could you tell us a little bit about touring, Maxine? Because the LSO is an orchestra that spends quite a lot of time, or did, on tour.
Yeah, ironically, I would have just probably landed in New York today on tour. So that, and a year ago, we would have been in South America on our first trip with the orchestra there. Touring is a massive part of most orchestras in London's lives. We travel pretty much every month within Europe, and there tend to be big trips through the year, through Asia, Japan, America. It's very exciting. I love being on tour because you get to see different cultures, different places, eat different kinds of food. And being in an orchestra, I have to say, has really afforded me the opportunity to discover places I would never have had a chance to go to, like Vietnam, India, the Middle East. It's very exciting. I love it because it just enhances the whole orchestra thing, experiencing these places and a different kind of life with your friends, and then performing music for very different kinds of audiences. It's a very special feeling, and I really, really hope that we'll return to some kind of normality soon, because for us, traveling around the world is a huge, huge part of our lives.
Great. So we've got another question from Beatrice Murray for you, Jo. Are your children going to play any instruments? And if so, what?
Yeah, good question. Well, they're only 8 months old, so not yet. We've got little drums and things for them. We decided when we knew we were going to have them that they would play the tuba and the bass trombone, because then they would always get a gig. But we'll see. We won't force them if they don't want to. If they do want to, obviously, then we'll let them. But we've got all of our instruments all around here, and we're trying to encourage them to love music as well as play it.
Great. We've got a question. Oh, we've got a poll. Even more exciting. Maxine, true or false? Okay. Maxine owns over 60 pairs of shoes. Maxine owns a motorbike. Or Maxine owns a fabulous collection of wigs. Which of those are true? Okay, so get voting. And we have a question from Leah Wiseman. For you, perhaps, Maxine, first. What skills have you learnt from the LSO?
Definitely compromise, that's for sure. How to get on with people, because you spend most of your time with a lot of people who you may not have, you may have musical differences with, you may have personal differences with, but at the end of the day, you have to learn to get on, you have to learn to be a nice person and understanding of people not having the greatest day and things like that, and very much listening to people, whether that's in a musical sense or just in a daily kind of sense. So I think, yeah, learning some kind of tolerance in the workplace has definitely been a big part of that.
Interesting. So our poll seems to be pretty much everybody seems to have voted now. So it looks like 83% think that you own over 60 pairs of shoes. 61% think you own a motorbike, and actually not very many think, only 33% think you have a collection of wigs. So could you tell us what the answer is?
I would really not like to see myself on a motorbike. It is the shoes question. You seem to know me quite well. Embarrassingly enough, it is the shoes. So I'm actually running on social media a shoes as orchestral works kind of hashtag, because somebody suggested I do it, and I match up a pair of shoes with an orchestral work every day. So I think today was day 40. So there's a bit of time. There's a bit of time to go with that. I'll give you an example. Actually, got a pair of shoes here that were designed actually by a friend of mine. So they've got this little sort of what I would call a little ponytail at the back, and so I teamed that with Hoedown from Rodeo by Copeland, because I thought it's like horses and things. So it's just a bit of fun and kind of passes 10 minutes for me when I wake up in the morning.
Brilliant, what fun. Great. What do you do, Jo, when the orchestra's away on tour?
I would love to say I put my feet up, but that's not true. So all 80, whatever it was of us you counted, are beavering away back in London. Well, some of them go on tour, obviously, to help run the tour, but the rest of us stay in London, and mostly in the marketing department. We're getting ready for the next concert in London, which we have to make sure people come to. So we're working on that. We're working sort of 18 months in advance, really, of the longest, end of the season concert away. So we're beavering away on that. I do a lot of social media, obviously, so I'm in touch particularly with Maxine a lot, and all the other musicians who tweet and do Facebook for us while they're away on tour. And that's about telling the stories, what's happening, where they are, what they're eating, what's going on. Yeah, it's business as usual when they're away on tour. I have been once or twice. It was fun.
Brilliant. Great. So Maxine, we've got another question. Oh, and we've got another poll. So the poll is for Jo this time. True or false? Jo used to name her cars. What did she have? Did she have a Fiat Cinquecento called Ferdy, a Ford car called Henry, a Peugeot 208 called Percy, or an Audi A4 called Enzo? Okay, so let's see which of those are true. And we've got a question for you, Maxine. What is a good tip for anyone playing in an orchestra?
A good tip?
Yeah.
Gosh, I think if you're new to an orchestra, what I would say is look around you and really learn from the people who have been there for years. It really helped me when I first joined an orchestra. I was quite green. This was my first job. I'd done a lot of youth orchestras, obviously, and I probably thought I knew it all, but I certainly learnt from the people who'd been in the profession for years. So I think you can really absorb so much knowledge from other people. My sight reading skills improved, all these kinds of things which you don't really perhaps think about until you suddenly just kind of get there.
Do you think that's the same in youth orchestras? Do you think you can learn from those that are kind of a little bit further ahead from you?
Definitely. There's always people to learn from, and you never stop learning either. So interestingly, not so long after I joined the orchestra, I went back and had some lessons with my teacher because I had a concert to prepare for. And he said, he said, your musicality has really grown. I can tell that you've been absorbing from, the situation you're in. There's the sort of musical ideas and growth that has been happening. And that always stayed with me because I thought, gosh, you really do have to take and absorb what is around you. And an orchestra is wonderful for that. It's full of fantastic musicians.
Great. Brilliant. Well, I think we've got our poll results for you, Jo. So it looks like 15% think you had a Cinquecento called Ferdy, 27 a car called Henry, 36 a Peugeot called Percy, so that's the winner, and an Audi A4 called Enzo was 23. So all quite even. So could you tell us the answer?
Yeah, everyone apart from people who said Audi is correct. So I had a series of cars that were not very good, shall we say. So I named them to make them more attractive to so I wouldn't hate them so much. But when we bought the Audi, it was far too sleek and gorgeous to have a name. It's far too sophisticated.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Jo. Right, we've got some more questions. So Maxine, Sophia Hawkins wants to know, what was your favourite time at NCO?
Oh, wow. I did love just I didn't like sort of the sectionals particularly and things like that, but always just the run up to the concerts, and we used to have a disco. I don't know if one calls it a disco, but it was just so much the social interaction, and even rushing home and writing letters to my friends. I mean, I suppose it's a slightly different world now because everyone's interconnected by the internet. But you think back in my day, you wouldn't see your friends. You definitely wouldn't have a chance to do this. It would be a letter that would go for a week and then another week before one comes back. But definitely, gosh, I cried after so many concerts because of the going home after. But just towards the end, when everything started to just shape together and sound amazing, and you think, I'm so excited about performing this concert for the people that are coming. So yeah, I have so many good memories of the courses.
Great. Now we've got lots more questions. So Finn wants to know, Maxine, how much rehearsal time do you get for each concert when you're given and when are you given the repertoire? So when do you know what you're playing, and then how long do you have to prepare it?
Well, we are given the repertoire very far ahead because a professional orchestra would announce their season, months in advance. So you would know, but to be honest, because we play so much, you might not really be aware of what's coming up beyond the next week. Say, for example, a concert's on a Wednesday, you would start on Monday. You can take the parts if you want early from the library and practice. And I certainly would have probably done this at the beginning when things were coming around for the first time. For now, they're pretty much coming around for the 20th time. But sometimes there are things which I see coming up and I think, oh, I know that's really difficult. So you would be able to prepare, but you would prepare yourself beforehand because there's very little time. Like I say, you basically do Monday 2 rehearsals, Tuesday maybe 1 or 2 rehearsals, and then Wednesday is a dress rehearsal and a concert. So, that time is really for the conductor to shape the music, not for people to kind of note bash or learn the notes.
Yeah, great, fantastic. And Jo, have you ever had any embarrassing moments at LSO?
Yes. So one thing that we do as staff, particularly marketing staff, is we take it in turns each concert to help at the box office, and we hand out guest tickets. And one year, the foreign secretary of the time, so a prominent politician, was due in that evening, and his name was on the guest list, and I'd recognised it. And come the end of the start of the concert at 7:30, there are a few tickets not collected, and his was one of them. And I turned to a box office colleague, and he said, "Oh, most of the tickets have gone this time. That's good." And I said, "Oh, the foreign secretary hasn't turned up though." And as I said those words, I had my back to the desk, and this voice said over my shoulder, "Oh yes, he has." And I turned around, and he was standing there, and I was just, oh my god, I sunk to the floor. And sort of handed over and went, oh god, no, I've never got over that.
I think you've even gone a bit red now thinking about it. I can see you, you're flushed.
I'm flustered. Oh.
You're even embarrassed 10 years later.
I am, yeah.
Okay, we got a poll for Jo. It says, Jo would prefer to go to London Fashion Week than the BBC Proms. Jo has spoken in the House of Lords, or Jo is a vegan. Oh, and one more, and Jo competes in triathlons. Okay, so what are those? We'll get everybody voting on that. And we've got a question for Maxine from Carlotta. What's the coolest thing about being part of the LSO?
Oh, I think probably the sort of commercial recordings we do. So I'm a big Star Wars fan, a big Harry Potter fan, and generally a fan of films. We record a lot of film music, so I suppose being able to be in a recording studio, put music to films, and of course the bonus being often, you know, I used to collect autographs before smartphones, so you would often get film celebrities from come along because they were really interested in the process. So they'd come along and I'd be like, "Can I have your autograph?" And obviously now it's all about the selfie. So I've got no qualms about going up to somebody and asking for a photo. Most of my friends are like, "I can't believe you do it," you know, and I'm like, well, it's just a person, and you know, no one's ever said no. And in fact, the time I met George Clooney, I thought, well, I can't just say, "Oh, can I have my photo with you?" So I went up to him, and they were just like in the recording booth in the break, and when he stopped talking and he was just sort of smiling around, and I went up to him and I said, "Would you like to have your photo taken with me?" And he really laughed, and we did have our picture taken. But I just thought, I just can't be like the million people who have said, "Can I have my photo taken with you?" So yes, at least I did make him laugh, and he was very, very complimentary about the orchestra and how the whole process was going. I think we've recorded with him 3 times, maybe 3 films. So I'd say the cool part of certainly my line of work is definitely getting to sometimes meet people like that and work on things that you think, "Oh wow, I'm going to see that in the cinema." And yeah, I always get a buzz out of stuff like that.
Well, that's really neat because Katie Messenger's just asked, if you could be any Harry Potter character, who would you be? Do you want to answer that one, Jo?
Oh wow.
Go on, Maxine, go on, you do.
Oh no,
I'm just Maxine.
Of course.
Go on.
I'm just thinking about how I did get Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe's autograph in the days before apparently he just started scrawling his name. He actually really wrote it out, like Magic Rocks, Daniel Radcliffe, and I'd managed to swipe a bit of the Chamber of the Secrets music. I hope nobody hears about that, and I sort of framed it. God, I'd probably be like Hermione Granger because I'm a goody two-shoes, but I don't know about you, Jo.
I was totally going to say that. I'm the squarest person on the planet. Absolutely, 100% Hermione.
Great. Okay, we've got some results of your polls, Jo. So most people think you'd rather be at the Proms than BBC Fashion Week. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, my dress sense is not like Maxine. I'd rather be at London Fashion Week. Look at that.
So 69% think you've spoken in the House of Lords.
Oh,
have you?
I wish I had. I have spoken to some politicians, but not in the House of Lords.
67% think you're a vegan.
No, I'm not a vegan. No.
And 52% think you do triathlons.
Right.
That's correct.
Yes,
Wow.
that's correct. Well, not right at the moment. After a couple of babies, I probably need a little while to get back into that.
Brilliant. Great. So we've got another question for you, Maxine, from Shivani. Who was your inspiration, or who is your inspiration?
Gosh, when I was growing up, my favourite violinists were Anne-Sophie Mutter and Maxim Vengroff. So that was, yeah, my sort of teenage stuff. I would go to their concerts, and quite amazing when you end up working actually with your childhood heroes. I told Anne-Sophie Mutter this maybe 3 years ago, and I was really tongue-tied actually, because I wanted to get a photo with her, but for some reason this felt much more scary than anybody else I'd asked. And I told her that I had a CD of hers that she'd signed for me, and she said, oh, which one? And I said, oh, Berg Violin Concerto, you've got, like, you know, your hair like this and beautiful blue dress. And she said, oh, that was just after my daughter was born. And I said, oh, how old is Arabella now? She said, oh, 24 or something. We were like, oh gosh. But they were sort of two of my huge inspirations when I was growing up, definitely. And my parents would very kindly take me to all their concerts in London at the time when I was growing up. Yeah, just amazing.
Okay, we've got a question from Evie Cooper for you, Jo. If you could work in any other part of the LSO, what would it be?
I really love what Discovery do. The Discovery are the education and outreach department, and they do some amazing projects. Just a huge range of work that lots of the public never sees a lot of it, and some of it's so amazing. They go and play in hospitals, they do schools, they do retirement homes. It's just astonishing the amount of work they do, and some of it is so, it makes you realise what music is for. And why we do it, why musicians play, why we as administrators enable that to happen. And I think their work is amazing. I'd love to work in that. Oh, I can hear the boys. I think the boys
boys might come and see us. That'd be fantastic. But let's just see, Maxine, could you tell us about how you listen in an orchestra?
That's a really good question. It's really easy to actually get bogged down, I think, in your own part. You probably know that as well. You kind of get so engrossed in what you're actually doing. And it's very noticeable when I listen to a concert or perhaps even this live stream, and I think to myself, oh, I've not heard that before, because I'm usually so focused on what I'm actually doing. And I'd say that, you have to sort of note what is going on in that, who's playing the similar kind of line as you, who's got the motor in the orchestra, who you should be listening to and focusing on for rhythmically. It's just a case of, like, just having so many ears around to just pick out what's going on here, because chances are you don't have the most important thing 100% of the time, maybe not even 50% of the time. And it's just being hyper aware. Often, with the conductor's help, you'll understand who has the main role and who you should be listening to. But it's good to get it in here. Note who in the orchestra is playing the same kind of line. It might not even be that obvious. And just be super aware of not getting so bogged down in your own world and thinking that it will be all and end all is your part.
Yeah, fantastic. So we've actually got a question that teams up with this next poll. Marina has asked, have you ever had an embarrassing moment on stage? So we've got a poll here that says Maxine fears wardrobe malfunctions on stage more than anything else. Which of the following have happened to her? A huge earring clattered to the ground in a really quiet passage. She walked on stage once with her skirt tucked into her knickers. And she regularly has terrible ladders in her tights. Okay, so we'll see what the others think about that. See that all the voting is going on.
I'm going to have to slip away, Kath, because the boys are hungry. I don't know if you can hear them in the background, but there's one who's very hungry. So I'd better go and be mummy.
Okay, well, thanks, Jo, for joining us, and thank you for being such a wonderful guest on our webinar.
Thank you very much for asking me. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Hope everyone enjoyed it. And
great. We'll see you again.
See you again.
Bye. Bye. So let's see, what do people think about this? Maxine, 50% think that the earring fell off. 30% think you've had your skirt tucked in your knickers once, and 21% now think that you regularly have terrible ladders in your tights. So what is the truth?
The truth is the huge earring. It was really, really big earring, and I was absolutely mortified when it just went clang, 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 clang. It wasn't even just a one drop. It was like, you know, and probably magnified in sound, just because for me it just felt like the loudest sort of timpani roll that you could have. And we were on tour, and when we sort of came to the end of the movement, my desk partner turned to me and said, we were in Bonn in Germany, and my desk partner turned to me and said, "Don't worry, Beethoven lost his earring in Bonn as well." So like doubly like just, you know, creasing up. But yeah, these happen. It's not the end of the world, or I like to tell myself.
Great. Well, I'm afraid we're really coming close to the end of the time we've got with you. So I'm just going to share with our amazing NCO family that the next week we have another webinar at the same time, where we've got Peter Moore and Jennifer Pike joining us, who are both winners of BBC Young Musician, and both won it when they were amazingly 12 years old. Peter's a trombonist and Jennifer is a violinist. So we're going to be joined by them to talk about their careers and what's happened to them since they won the competition, and what kind of what music making they're involved with. So that's really exciting to have them join us. But before we go, Maxine, would you be able to, oh yeah, they've just shared the results of the poll, which we know what the malfunction was. So the could you what kind of message would you like to have given your 13-year-old self? If you could have kind of whispered in your ear now, what would you say?
Well, funnily enough, looking at me, you probably wouldn't think I was somebody who was very shy and not confident. But at that age, I was very unsure of myself and very much doubted what I could do. So I would definitely tell myself to have the confidence to go for things, to work really, really hard, because you don't get anywhere, I'm afraid, without working really, really hard. But to not cripple yourself with self-doubts. You know, just give everything you've got to things. It could, you know, whatever you're doing in life, to be honest, but to just tell yourself, you know, I can do this. You know, it's not the end of the world if things don't work out, but I've got to try. So just have the confidence to go for things, and just to, yeah, try your very, very best. There were so many opportunities I wish I'd gone for at the time, because I just felt too scared to do it. And, you know, you don't want to look back with a kind of regret. So just give it everything you've got.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that advice, Maxine. And thank you for joining us on our NCO webinar, and also for being an NCO and for being one of our lovely tutors, and for all the amazing work you do. So thank you for joining us. And I will say to all the NCO children, super looking forward to seeing you all next week, hopefully, fingers crossed, and say goodbye to Maxine. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.